Welcome to Company and Partnership Law class. Today we will look at section 4 of unit 4, where deals with transactions in shares. Session objectives. By the end of this session, you should be able to state and explain the two types of prohibited transactions in shares, describe how the number of shares are altered, and tabulate for transactions not prohibited. Now let's deal with prohibited transaction in shares. The Companies Act gives a number of transactions that the company cannot deal with, especially in shares. So we want to look at those provisions. Now, if you look at section 58 of Act 992, it gives the various prohibitions in transaction in shares. Some of the prohibitions are total, others are partial. So the Act provides as follows: except as provided in this Act. The beginning of this sentence indicates that if the Act provides so, then those transactions will be permitted. Other than that, the following are prohibited. 1. A company shall not alter the amount of money remaining payable on those shares. So, the amount remaining payable, what this means is that if shares has been issued to you and you have paid part and you have not paid all, the remaining amount will not be changed. In other way, the remaining amount will not be reduced or set aside that you should not pay. This prohibition is a total prohibition. It's a total prohibition. That's section 58, subsection 1A. 2. A company shall not release a shareholder or a former shareholder. So this one is a current shareholder and this one is a former shareholder from the liabilities on the shares. That's section 58 1B. What this means is that if you're a shareholder and you are owing, as far as your shares are concerned, the company is prohibited or barred from cancelling those liabilities. It means that at all costs, if you have outstanding liability on the shares, you have to pay. These two prohibitions are totally, let me pin it well and give you the right picture. The first two prohibitions as we have discussed are totally prohibited transactions in shares. What it means that the company is not permitted to transact in shares in any of these two activities that we have discussed. So these ones are total prohibition. Total prohibition. Now, a company shall not alter the number of its shares. For this one, it is partial prohibition. What it means that the law prohibits or bar a company from altering its number of shares, perhaps the authorized shares in the company. So you are not supposed to change your number of shares. That is the prohibition here. However, this prohibition is partial one. It means that the Act make room for alteration to be done, but it should conform with certain requirements. So you can alter your shares in accordance with the applicable rules. Also, a company shall not provide financial assistance, key underlying word, directly or indirectly for the subscription or purchase of the shares of a company or the shares of its holding company. This is provided in section 58 1C. Now, this also means that as a company, you are not supposed to give financial assistance to any of your members, either the person is going to use to subscribe or purchase some of your shares. You are not supposed to do. However, this prohibition is also a partial prohibition, meaning that the Act has provided a way in which, if you want to do so, you should follow. Another prohibition is that a company shall not acquire by way of purchase or otherwise issue of shares or any of its holding companies. So the law also prohibits a company from acquiring its own shares or the shares of its subsidiary. So these three are partial prohibition. They are partial prohibition. What this means is that even though they are prohibited to do so, but if they want to do, then they have to conform to certain provisions. If they want to do so, they have to comply with certain provisions. Now you go ahead to look at how these partial prohibitions can be dealt with in accordance with the law. But as I said, the first two, as I indicated, are totally prohibitions. It means that the company cannot do anything about it. Let's deal with altering the number of company shares, which is provided in section 59. A company may increase the number of the shares of the company by creating new shares. So, as we indicated, that a company is prohibited from altering its number of shares. Now, section 59 gives the guidance or steps that you should follow when you want to alter your shares. One of the procedures is that create new shares as a company. B is that you can also reduce the number of shares of the company. You can reduce the number of shares of the company. How do you reduce the shares? Either you cancel shares which has not been issued, you cancel shares which has not been issued, or agree to be taken. So if you have existing share that you have not issued, you can cancel it off. Another way to reduce number of shares is by consolidating of shares. By consolidating of shares, when you consolidate shares, the existing shares, the amounts and the liabilities are all consolidated. Now, this is what you mean by consolidation. Assuming that the company wants to consolidate 5 shares to 1 share, it means that anyone who is having 5 shares will now have 1 share. If you have 10 shares, you will now have 2 shares, so that it reduces the number of shares that the company holds. Now, if the company is saying that it is reducing its number of shares, 5 will go for 1 share, then obviously the one who is having 30 shares in the company will have 6 shares by way of division. It will be 6 shares. So the person will no longer hold 30 shares, but rather the person will hold 6 shares. This is what you mean by consolidation, that you reduce the number of shares. We are looking at providing financial assistance directly or indirectly to the members of the or employees of the company. Even though we stated earlier under section 58 that the company is prohibited from providing financial assistance directly or indirectly to its employees or members or directors. However, Section 60 states that despite the prohibition in 58, the following transactions are not prohibited. Now, 1. When a company makes payments or commission or brokerage to a person who subscribe or agree to subscribe or has procured or agreed to procure in consideration of the shares of the company, then that commission or the brokerage fee should not exceed 10% of the price of the shares or lower rate as the company will provide. Once it falls within this range, then the law allows the company to transact in that manner. What you are saying that you can't provide financial assistance. However, you can only provide financial assistance when it has to do with payment or commission or brokerage to a person in consideration of subscription, or the person has agreed to subscribe or purchase or has agreed to procure, or the person has procured some of the shares. Then the amount of the commission that is being provided for it to be used should not exceed 10% of the price of the shares. Now we also have, if the company is into lending of money, or lending of money is its ordinary business, then notwithstanding, the company can provide loan for 8 employees or members or even directors, irrespective of the fact that those amounts will be used to purchase shares. The next point that you want to consider is that the provision by a company of money for purchase or subscription of shares to be held for the benefit of person genuine in employment of the company or associated company in accordance with a scheme for the time in force. Now, this is what we mean. When there is a scheme arrangement that allows the company to give money to employees or even directors, then the law allows the company to do so. But before then, before you do so, you have to understand certain provisions. There are certain requirements that you have to meet. 1. The loan or the amount being provided, its sole purpose is for purchase or subscription of the company's shares. 2. The amount given are to persons who are in genuine employment of the company or associated company. And as I said, there should be a scheme arrangement in force. It means that when any of these provisions or elements I have mentioned is absent, then the company cannot provide such financial assistance. You also want to look at company acquiring by way of purchase or otherwise of its issue shares or any shares of its holding company. The law, as section 61 of Act 992, provides that a company may create or issue preference shares. The company may create or issue preference shares which are at the option of the company, are liable to redeem or may convert existing shares, whether issued or not, into redeemable preference shares, subject to provisions of section 62 to section 65. So when it is about preference shares, then the law allows the company to what? Redeem, especially redeemable preference shares. The law allows the company also to purchase its own share, subject to section 63 to 67. It means that you can purchase, even though you are prohibited to purchase your own shares. However, if you can comply with Section 63 to 67 of the Companies Act, in purchasing of your own shares, the law allows you to do so. Also, the law allows you to acquire your own shares by way of voluntary transfer to the company or to the nominee for the company, subject to compliance with Section 62 to 65. What we mean is that if the person in his free will decides to transfer the shares to the company the law allows the company to accept that shares. And the last one, the law allows the company to acquire its own shares pursuant to the bailout provision in Section 222 of Act 992. So the bailout provision deals with the fact that if the minority are always not in agreement with the majority can come together, then buy the shares of the minority so that they will leave the company to bring peace in the company, especially when it is intentional, when the minority or a single shareholder is always in a disagreement with the decisions of the majority. The law allows the company to buy out that person's share. Now, purchase by the company of its own shares. Section 63 provides those provisions. The law says that a company shall purchase any of the shares of the company, and these are the only ways in which the company can purchase its shares. 1. Where shares are only purchased out of the credit balance of the share deals account. You remember we talked about the share deals account in our previous lesson. So you can only purchase your own share by using the credit balance of your share deal account or out of the transfers to the share deals account from the retained earnings. So this is what is happening. Now, if you want to purchase your own shares, you have to go to your share deals account. Check whether there's a credit balance. If there's credit balance, you can use that one to buy it. If there's no credit balance, what you have to do is that you check your retained earnings. If there's enough fund in your retained earnings, you then transfer it to your share deals account. So you debit the retained earnings account and you credit the share deals account so that the share deals account will have a credit balance. Also, redeemable preference shares are not purchased at a price greater than the lowest price at which they are then redeemable or will be redeemable at the next date at which they are due or liable to be redeemed. Even though the company can purchase its own shares, the maximum shares that the company can buy is 15%. 15%. It cannot purchase more than 15%. By way of summary, we have noted that prohibited transactions are of two types: total, partial transactions. It also came to light that shares that have been taken up in respect of which there has been no agreement to take them up can be cancelled by the company. We also saw that some of the transactions are not prohibited. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.